Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish. I'm Stephanie Hansen, and I like to talk to people obsessed with food. In particular, I enjoy cookbook authors. And today I'm with Beth Le Manach, and she is the author of a cookbook that just the title alone, I feel like, holy cats, that's so intimidating. It is called Entertaining 101. Beth, that just makes you like right on the level of Martha Stewart in my brain. Were you nervous about calling it 101?
No, because the way that I'm thinking about the title is it's really targeted towards beginners or veterans who just need it to be easier and quicker. And I think everybody loves a 101 entry point because they know it's not going to be intimidating. It's going to be accessible.
Well, you are not a 101 in your chops. You have over 662,000 followers on YouTube. They were like, oh, she has a YouTube channel. And I went to look. I was like, holy cats. Tell me the name of your YouTube channel because I forgot to write it down. Recipes for Entertaining. Was that what it was
Yeah.
called?
No, it's called Entertaining with Beth.
Got it. Okay. So you also are very fascinating, but I'm going to get to that part in just a second. Take me through like your journey of like how you started the YouTube and how we are that you're just, is this your first book?
Yes, it is my first book.
Seems
I
long
know. I waited a
overdue.
long time. I know, exactly. Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but I'll give you the highlights. I started my YouTube channel because I was by trade a producer for television, lifestyle television, and I got my start with the Scripps Network, so Food Network, HGTV, Fine Living. I was producing a bunch of content for them. I saw everything going online, digital, so I was like, I want to produce digital content for the web. I got a job at a company that had a huge order for YouTube. So this was right around 2011 when YouTube started giving grants to media companies to produce quality content so they could get the advertisers to actually advertise against it. Because up until that point, it was a lot of, skateboard tricks and cat videos and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah. And so since I had come up with all of this kind of lifestyle content, my boss was like, okay, create a YouTube channel that women will love. And I was a new mom. I had two small kids and I was into all this lifestyle content, but I knew nothing about YouTube. So I had to really learn what it was. And little by little, we started to just create content. That was food content, fashion, beauty, all the things that I thought like women would be interested in. And then one day my boss came to me and said, you know what, we are like really behind on the hours here that we have to deliver. We got to pep this up a bit. What do you got? And I was like, I think we should do like entertaining shows, like 30-minute shows, like what we used to do for TV. Like, let's do the perfect dinner
Yeah.
party. He was like, well, who are we going to get to do that? And I was like, me. I love to cook and I have a lot of recipes. And at the time I had just bought a house and I was like, come to my house. You don't have to pay me. You're already paying me. And let's knock off a few of these episodes. So we did about 16 of them. And then my boss was like, this is really resonating with people. And it really hit me at that point because I thought, how is this new information for people? Because I had grown up with Martha Stewart and Ina Garten, and I just thought that everybody was watching this, but people at the time on YouTube were just getting into like all the beauty gurus, and those girls were now aging up and sort of like having their first apartments and getting married, and they weren't suddenly going to go offline and go look at magazines and books. They were staying online, and I
Yeah.
think that's where it really resonated. And so long story short, I did that until I started to do it full time, and now the channel is mine and I just do it full time.
It explains lots of things. One, how prescient of you to see this digital age coming. So very smart.
Yeah.
Two, I always talk about first mover advantage. And whenever there's a new platform or something, I always make sure that I log on, I save my handle, even if I don't know if I'm going to use it or do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that being the first in a space or in a being a handful of first in a space is part of what gets you that first mover advantage. So, note to self, people, because there's going to be a lot of social enterprises that are coming in our future. And then also, like sometimes the keeping it simple is the best. Like you just assume that everybody knows how to, make a delicious Aperol spritz, but necessarily they don't. So, that what you can offer in your most authentic way is valuable. And that's, I guess, why you did this as your first book, because you seem like you really are taking and packaging a lot of this in a way that feels authentic to you. And that's what people want.
I think they do. I mean, and I think that's what YouTube has really taught me is that there are thousands of chicken parmesan recipes on
Yes.
YouTube, but people will still ask me, but we want your recipe. Not because my recipe is going to be better than anybody else's recipe, because there's only a couple of ways around making a chicken parm, but because they want my point of view. And I think that that's what makes YouTube so human. And that's why they called it YouTube, because it is about you and how I prepare a chicken parmesan recipe could be different than how you prepare it. And the things that we're going to highlight could be different based on our own lived experience. And I think that's what makes it really human and really fun. Yeah.
Your show is also very beautiful. I just started doing a TV
Oh, thanks.
show with Fox here locally, and lighting is so important. And my own YouTube is horribly lit and embarrassing. Yours is incredible. Like, do you
No,
have
it's a
like a
learned
whole light
experience.
setup?
Oh my gosh. You know what my light setup is now? No lights. The light setup is no lights because I went round and round and I have, you know, a lot of different experience. Like I started with the big crew of 7 people that would come, and then I would go back like after COVID and there was no people, and then I had to learn it all myself. And then I moved to France and I was like, I can't carry all this stuff with me. I have gone back and forth on the lighting, and I always go back to the fact that like natural lighting for food is just the best lighting, and then just adjust the camera settings. Like you're much better off doing that and know which angles of the kitchen give you the best, softest light, because that you can always reproduce the camera, but you can't always reproduce the exact temperature and light. And like that just was making me crazy. So I just decided to
Okay,
ditch the lights. Yeah,
that is
there
a
are the
good
lights.
tip. Yes, I like it. You mentioned this move to France, and you have through the course of your channel and through the course of your
Yeah.
career here, also you had a like it sounded like a rental in France that you made into a full-time home.
Yes, exactly.
You and your husband moved to France, and he's French, so
Yes.
he's like your Jeffrey.
Yeah. You could say that. Yeah. He definitely has inspired me a lot, I think, with the French lifestyle and French cooking. And we would come to France every summer just to vacation. And then we thought, okay, let's stop renting all these houses. Let's buy a house and then become the renter, like become the person renting. That was just a better investment for us. And then I don't know. He got to a point in his life where he was like, I see all my friends retiring in France. That's where I want to be. And I think that's the blessing and the curse of marrying a foreigner. At one point, they're going to want to go back, and you just have to be ready for that. So I was always ready for it because I've always loved France, and I just thought, like, that's a fun experience. Yeah, let's go do that.
Do you read David Leibovitz's blog?
Yes, I do. I love him. Yeah, he's great.
I've learned so much. I have relatives that are from Montreal, which is not France, but
Mhm.
they've spent time in France, and
Yeah.
um, he just talks a lot about the difficulties of living in France and being an American transplant living in France. Are there things that you have found that you're just like, oh, I just wish I could get this, or something that you're craving that you
Yes.
miss?
Prepared broths and stocks. Like, you know, when you go in the States, you go to the grocery store and you see like a million organic chicken broth, beef broth, like in every brand. It takes up practically the whole soup aisle. Here, you cannot get that. You can get the cubes where you're making it, but it's like you're wasting a whole cube for 2 cups of broth, and you may not need the 2 cups of broth. Like I love those little 1 cup ones that we can get in the States.
Yep.
That we cannot get here. And I don't know why. A lot of me thinks like it just takes up too much space on the shelves, and maybe the little cubes are better, but I do miss that.
Do you have that
And
better
land
than bouillon product?
we don't have that. I have not seen that. Uh-uh. Like there's a lot of different kinds of these little broth cubes too, and I've been trying all of them. Some of them are horrible and some of them are okay, but there's nothing like the Swanson's chicken broth. Like I really kind of miss that.
I love
That
it.
and Land O'Lakes butter. Land O'Lakes butter. Even though we have a million wonderful butters here in France, for baking nothing is quite like the Land O'Lakes salted butter, in my opinion.
I live in Minnesota, the home of
I
Land
know you
O'Lakes, so
do.
that
I
makes me
know.
real happy. All right. So, Entertaining 101 is about simple, easy ways to start your entertaining life, whether it be like a signature cocktail for mom's brunch, or an egg bake for Christmas, or just a simple like Friday night dinner party. What are some of your favorite entry points for entertaining?
Yeah. Well, I think brunch. I think brunch is the beginner's like home run because there's no fancy roasts that you have to learn how to carve. It's pretty inexpensive because you're not serving a ton of wines and cocktails. It's fairly cheap too because of what you're making. It's eggs and bread and fruit. And it's easy because you can like prep in the morning and then people come at like 11. And it doesn't take the whole night. Like it's not going to go on for hours and hours. Like people usually leave around 2 or 3. I just think it's a great entry point for people. Yeah, I mean, I think, once you get into the holidays, like the Thanksgiving and the Christmas, you want to get a few brunches under your belt, maybe a few dinners. I always say start with 4, then have 6, but don't ever start having 10 guests, which is what Thanksgiving is. So don't start there
Yep.
because people usually get themselves so stressed out for entertaining because I think they don't start at the right entry point and then they never want to do it again because it was a big mess and oh, it was so stressful because I think they didn't work their way up to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought about that, but that's really a clever way to think about it. I also think too, choosing like the main dish and then building from there is helpful. Like,
Yes.
I don't know why I was afraid to cook salmon for forever, but really,
Mhm.
roasting a whole side of salmon is a great dish for entertaining.
Super easy, beautiful, super delicious. Yeah, I think there's people too, like they get sort of stressed out at all of the organization, like the timing of it, because most people don't have like restaurant cook experience where everything is timed. So my philosophy is always like 1 or 2 things, 2 max, that's like active cooking. The rest assembly and the rest pre-made. So like if you balance out the portfolio of dishes so that they're not all active cooking, it's just going to make your life so much easier.
And
So
don't you think too, like what I always discover with entertaining is people are just so delighted to come, to be
of
invited to
course.
something. We don't do this enough.
We don't do it enough because I think people are afraid of how it's going to go because maybe they had 1 or 2 bad experiences, or because, for better or for worse, I'm probably contributing to this, but there is so much food media out there between the blogs and the Instagram and the Pinterest and television and books that like it can get very overwhelming. What do you serve and, where do you begin? That I really wanted to create like, here are the 101 recipes that like everybody should just know how to make. Like it's just should be part of your repertoire. Like get the basics down first and get the ones that you crave. So like of course everybody wants to know how to make a turkey at Thanksgiving or a key lime pie at Easter or barbecue chicken in the summer. Like these are the things we are all sort of craving perennially. And if you can get those right, then you go to like 102, which is, the more sophisticated
I
flavor
feel like
profiles and that kind of thing.
second book, are you already thinking about it?
Oh my gosh, no, because I'm still recovering from the first book. You're a cookbook author. I had no idea how all consuming it is in a
How
good
long did
way.
it
But
take you?
yeah, it was a definite 2-year project, between the testing, the writing, the photography, like all of it. Yeah.
Part did you love and what part did you hate?
Yeah, I really love the testing, like really taking the time to test each recipe and getting excited about being able to share it, thinking of all of my subscribers that I've had over the years and thinking, oh, this person's going to love this. And oh, this is really going to help that person. I love that. I love the writing. I didn't think I would love that as much, but I really love that the stories and the tips and the kind of bringing the recipe to life. As much as I love the results of the photo shoot, that was probably the most exhausting, I think.
Mhm.
And to have to then remake all 101 recipes again. And, at that point, it's not just me in the kitchen, it's a whole team of people and making sure, like, oh, that's not supposed to look like that. Or, like, oh, that crust shouldn't be like, and like that I found very taxing. But it was great to see all the photos at the end of the shoot, like, oh, wow, we did all that.
Did you have to cut some recipes and was that hard to do?
We didn't, I would cut them in the testing. We didn't, we basically shot everything that we planned. So that was great. But there were recipes that I just kept thinking, this is good, but it's too complicated. Or this is not delivering on my motto of like minimum effort, maximum impact. This is like maximum effort for maximum impact. But like, I didn't want to go there. I wanted to keep it really easy and accessible for people. So those were the recipes that usually got the pitch.
It was it harder. So when did you move to France? And was this in the middle?
Yeah, it was. Of course. That was the craziest thing about it. We did the photo shoot in May and we moved in June. So as soon as the like photo team left at the end of May, we were like, okay, let's wrap it up. And we started just put things in boxes. And because I couldn't like take the whole house apart because I needed all the props and I needed a certain amount of furniture and dishes and things, that I couldn't take. So yeah.
Did you move all that stuff? Do you still have it? Because people don't realize like when you're styling photos, you need
I
all this
know.
stuff that you have.
You need all this stuff. And I had a ton of props, as we all do. Anybody that's in this business has a ton of props. And I used them all for the cookbook, but I could not take them all with me to France. It just was going to be too expensive. And I was actually afraid that some of them would break anyway. So I gave them to a lot of the prop master who was working on the cookbook. Like she took a bunch, everybody on the shoot took some. And we had a fully furnished house here in France that we were renting. So, and of course, every time I'd come, I would hit a flea market and buy more stuff. So, like, I just had no more room for any more stuff. So I just had to, give it away.
Yeah, it's kind of liberating and kind of freeing though in and of itself.
It is. It is.
Who do you look up to for entertaining?
Oh, all the greats. I love Martha Stewart. I love Ina Garten. Um, I'm trying to think like if there's a couple of substackers that I really love. Um, there's a woman, La Dolce Vita is the name of her Substack. Do you know her? Do you
I
follow her?
do.
Scott? I think
Mhm.
it's, yeah. I love her sort of effortless elegance. I love things that don't feel overly fussy or feel overly staged. Yeah, there's a lot of Instagrammers too that you just see that you're like, oh yeah, I love that. I don't know. Yeah, I think my parents, like, I love the way that they entertain, and I've always like looked up to their sort of style of entertaining.
You mentioned a chicken parm experience, and I just happened to have read a whole thing about an influencer that apparently grabbed some very similar recipes from some recipe writers and then repackaged them and put them in her book in Australia that's been like a multi-million bestseller. And I always worry and wonder about that because it's very hard to make a recipe your own for something like a chicken parm. And I
Right.
really cooking very basic and presenting very basic recipes that people have been doing for forever. And short of like saying, I got inspiration or I adapted from, I do wonder if we're getting into this place where the internet is just full of 6,000 chicken parmesan recipes that are all the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think what really uh sets them apart though is the way you go about it. Like I can remember a copyright lawyer telling me like you can't actually copyright the ingredients, but you can copyright the method. And I think, for anybody who cooks a lot, there is a method that you go about making the recipe that's based on your experience, like the do's and more importantly the don'ts. Like don't do that because you're going to have a soggy chicken parm. Make sure you do this because it'll crisp up more. So like in my chicken parmesan video on YouTube, I labeled it a little bit different. I think it's something like the 6 tips to a great chicken parm. And that's just based on my experience. Like fry it in a cast iron pan, pre-salt the chicken so that it's nice and juicy. Once it comes out of the pan, put it on a cooling rack with something like a cookie rack so that it doesn't get all soggy. Add a little Parmesan cheese. Like, so I think that people make very classic recipes their own by adding their own personality and their own little tips and tricks that they've learned along the way to guarantee success. So I feel like, even in the age of AI and everybody's like, oh, they're only going to get these recipes from AI. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to get that human experience of like, here's what I did that doesn't work. Here's what I've done that actually works really well. So I think that's kind of our, competitive edge, I guess, against the robots.
Yeah, and the superpower that maybe will separate finally the wheat from the chaff, as it were, because if we
Yeah.
are all then making similarly the same thing, it is how we're doing it and also how we're performing the content
Yeah.
because like people get interested in you as a human and you as how you do things and they want to follow you and your point of view and think you're funny or whatever your superpower is.
Exactly. And that's why I think video is so powerful because that doesn't always come across on the printed page or with a photograph. But when you are on video and you're spending time like building this audience on YouTube, it is a way to connect in a more human way with people. And that also, when they search chicken parm and they see 3 or 4 results come up, if they already know you because they've watched your video, they you do feel like a friend to them and they want your point of view. So I think, it was worth all those years and years of uploads because it does help you like ingratiate yourself a little bit more to the audience.
Yeah. And also, I think if you just, this is a weird thing to say, but I've been thinking about this a lot because I have a speech later today and I
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
sure what I was going to speak about. And my husband's like, oh, are you going to talk about women in business? I was like, no, I think I'm going to talk about my rags to not riches story, which is like people have all these different experiences, right? And you're always comparing yourself to other people or trying to measure up or trying to get as many likes or follows or comments. And really, what I always keep coming back to is that people just want authentic, friendly, nice people in their kitchen to spend time with them.
I think so, 100%, especially if it's something that they're a little unsure about. They want the reassurance that, like, it's going to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to do it together. Like, I think that that's very reassuring for people.
One
Yeah.
of the recipes that I happened to see on your YouTube really just like blew my mind. And I think it's based on your French experiences about almond croissants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's from the book,
obsessed.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it in the
It's
book too?
okay.
Great.
It is in the book. Yeah.
I'm obsessed with almond croissants. And what you did was you took day old croissants and then made like a beautiful almond filling, and
Hmm.
voila, almond croissants. It never occurred to me that that would be a way that you could do that without, like laminating dough and
I
doing all the hard work.
Yeah, well, I laughed out loud because I didn't realize, and my husband shared this with me when we were sort of newly married, that almond or croissants were made because that was a way that the bakeries could use up the day old croissants that didn't sell, because very few things go to waste in France, especially food. So then it like made perfect sense. Like, oh, of course. So if they're doing that, like we could be doing that.
Yeah, I
We
love
just
it.
don't have we just don't have the day old croissants, but like you can do it with fresh if you just split them open and let them dry out while you make the filling, and it's just as good.
So you have an event that's coming up at Cooks at Crocus Hill, June 8th, 4 p.m. As we record this, there's only a few tickets left. So by the time it actually airs, you probably won't have the privilege of getting tickets unless you decide to do another night. Is that a possibility?
I don't know because I have to leave the next day for my next tour. So this is
Okay.
the thing that I'm learning about the book tours is you have to be quick about it because it is expensive to go to all these cities.
Yes. And how many
Yes,
cities are you going to on your tour?
I'm going to 7.
Okay. Okay. That is going to be great.
Yeah.
So we are speaking with Beth Le Manach, and she is the author of Entertaining 101. And you can find her book, Recipes Every Host Should Know How to Make. I thought that was a great subtitle, too, by the way. Very clear. Everybody
Thank
knew
you.
exactly what they were going to be getting from your book. Do you have a Substack, too, or how do you want people to
I
follow you?
do. Yes, I do. I have a Substack. That would be great. People can follow me there. It's called Entertaining with Beth.
And how are you enjoying that as a platform?
I love it. I mean, this is the funny thing is like writing the cookbook did introduce me to this like other way to create, which was writing. And I think it came at the perfect time because we moved to France around the same time that I was doing more on Substack. So I share the recipes there, which are free. But then if people want to be part of my paid community, once a month I do an essay about what it's like living in France and kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, because there is so much material that happens. And that's just been a really fun exercise to share that just in the written page. And sometimes I include little videos in it too. So it's been fun.
It's always fun too, I think, as creators to have other outlets and more outlets.
Yeah.
And, I know people find this hard to believe, but with the exception of like in any industry, the top 10%, the other 90% of us are cobbling this together, right? You're at the end of the year when you're doing your taxes, you have 52 tiny pots of money that you add up together. And
Right.
Substack is another tiny pot. but is giving a lot of joy to a lot of people and allowing them to flex in unique and creative ways.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think too, because if you stay with like kind of one medium, like I've been doing video for so many years, 13 years video, it gets really tiring and you start to get a little fatigued by it all. So it kind of jumpstarts your creativity again to be like, oh, now I'm going to write some things and now I'm going to, and then it sort of helps the video because you look at it with fresher eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Beth, it's been a delight to speak with you. Thanks for being on the podcast today. Good luck with the tour. I hope
Thank
your
you. And
book
thanks
is
for having me.
yes. Are you on pre-sale right now?
Yes, we're on pre-sale and then it goes on sale for real on June 3rd.
Okay, so we're gonna launch this podcast, I believe, right before the launch. If you can pre-sale, because you guys that listen know pre-sales are super important to cookbook authors. All of those sales that they've generated up on the pre-sale count towards the first day's sales, which hopefully, if all things go great, launches them on bestseller lists, right? That's what we're all trying to do.
Right.
Beth, I think you've
How
got a great shot at it because your book
well,
looks great. I've watched a bunch of your videos, and I'm just glad that you're getting a chance to come to St. Paul, Minnesota. Cooks of Crocus Hill is a great spot. You're going to have a blast.
yes, I hope so. It looks amazing. Thank you
All
so much
right.
for having me. I really appreciate it.
Enjoy your travels. Hopefully, we'll speak again sometime.
Sounds good. Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.